What's up, guys? Welcome to day 18. Today will be the last day of the book of Genesis. Before we get started, I would like to read James chapter 1 verse 17, where it says, "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows." And so, yeah, like I said, we will be done with Genesis today. So thank you for everyone who's sticked with me, as this is my first time, I think, reading through the whole book of Genesis and stuff. And so yeah, today we'll be starting Genesis chapter 47 verse 28. Jacob lived for 17 years after his arrival in Egypt, so he lived 147 years in all. As the time of his death drew near, Jacob called for his son Joseph and said to him, "Please do me this favor. Put your hand under my thigh and swear that you will treat me with unfailing love by honoring this last request. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I die, please take my body out of Egypt and bury me with my ancestors." So Joseph promised, "I will do as you ask." "Swear that you will do it," Jacob insisted. So Joseph gave his oath, and Joseph bowed humbly at the head of his bed. Chapter 48. One day, not long after this, word came to Joseph, "Your father is failing rapidly." So Joseph went to visit his father, and he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Joseph arrived, Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to see you." So Jacob gathered his strength and sat up in his bed. Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at last in the land of Canaan and blessed me. He said to me, 'I will make you fruitful and I will multiply your descendants. I will make you a multitude of nations, and I will give this land of Canaan to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession.' Now I was claiming as my own sons these two boys of yours, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born here in the land of Egypt before I arrived. They will be my sons, just as Reuben and Simeon are. But any children born to you in the future will be your own, and they will inherit land within the territories of their brothers Ephraim and Manasseh." Long ago, as I was returning from Padan Aram, Rachel died in the land of Canaan. We were still on the way some distance from Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. So with great sorrow I buried her there beside the road of Ephrath. Then Jacob looked over at the two boys. "Are these your sons?" he asked. "Yes," Joseph told him. "These are the sons God has given me here in Egypt." And Jacob said, "Bring them closer to me so I can bless them." Jacob was half blind because of his age and could hardly see. So Joseph brought the boys close to him, and Jacob kissed and embraced them. Then Jacob said to Joseph, "I never thought I would see your face again, but now God has let me see your children too." Joseph moved the boys who were at their grandfather's knees, and he bowed with his face to the ground. Then he positioned the boys in front of Jacob. With his right hand he directed Ephraim towards Jacob's left hand, and with his left hand he put Manasseh at Jacob's right hand. But Jacob crossed his arms as he reached out to lay his hands on the boys' heads. He put his right hand on the head of Ephraim, though he was the younger boy, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, though he was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph and said, "May the God before whom my grandfather Abraham and my father Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this very day, the angel who has redeemed me from all harm. May he bless these boys. May they preserve my name and the names of Abraham and Isaac, and may their descendants multiply greatly throughout the earth. But Joseph was upset when he saw that his father placed his right hand on Ephraim's head. So Joseph lifted to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. No, my father, he said, this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused. I know, my son, I know, he replied. Manasseh will also become a great people, but his younger brother will become even greater, and his descendants will become a multitude of nations. So Jacob blessed the boys that day with this blessing. The people of Israel will use your names when they give a blessing. They will say, may God make you as prosperous as Ephraim and Manasseh. In this way, Jacob put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. Then Jacob said to Joseph, look, I am about to die, but God will be with you and will take you back to Canaan, the land of your ancestors, and beyond what I have given your brothers, I am giving to you an extra portion of the land that I took from the Amorites with my sword and bow. Chapter 49. Then Jacob called together all his sons and said, gather around me, and I will tell you what will happen to each of you in the days to come. Come and listen, you sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. You are first in rank and first in power, but you are as unruly as a flood, and you will be first no longer. For you went to bed with my wife, you defiled my marriage couch. Simeon and Levi are two of a kind. Their weapons are instruments of violence. May I never join in their meetings. May I never be a party to their plans. For in their anger they murdered men, and they crippled oxen just for sport. A curse on their anger, for it is fierce. A curse on their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them among the descendants of Jacob. I will disperse them throughout Israel. Judah, your brothers will praise you. You will grasp your enemies by the neck, and all your relatives will bow before you. Judah, my son, is a young lion that has finished eating its prey. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down, like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants until the coming of the one to whom it belongs, the one whom all nations will honor. He ties his fuel full to a grapevine, the coat of his donkey to a choice vine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Zebulun will settle by the seashore and will be a harbor for ships. His borders will extend to Sidon. Issachar is a sturdy donkey resting between two saddle packs. When he sees how good the countryside is and how pleasant the land, he will bend his shoulders to the load and submit himself to hard labor. Dan will govern his people. Like any other tribe in Israel, Dan will be a snake beside the road, a poisonous viper along the path that bites the horse's hooves so its rider is thrown off. I trust in you for salvation, O Lord. Excuse me. Gad will be attacked by marauding bands, but he will attack them when they retreat. Asher will dine on rich foods and produce food fit for kings. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Joseph is the foal of a wild donkey, the foal of a wild donkey at the spring, one of the wild donkeys on the ridge. Archers attack him savagely. They shoot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained taut, and his arms were strengthened by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the shepherd, the rock of Israel. May the God of your father help you. May the Almighty bless you with the blessings of the heavens above, and the blessings of the watery depths below, and blessings of the breasts and womb. May my fatherly blessing on you surpass the blessings of my ancestors, reaching to the heights of the eternal hills. May this blessing rest on the head of Joseph, who is a prince among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, devouring his enemies in the morning and dividing his plunder in the evening. These are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said as he told his sons goodbye. He blessed each of them with an appropriate message. Then Jacob instructed them, "Soon I will die and join my ancestors. Bury me with my father and my grandfather in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite. This is the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan, that Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite as a permanent burial site. There Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried. Then Isaac and his wife Rebekah are buried. And there I buried Leah. It is a plot of land and a cave that my grandfather Abraham bought from the Hittites." Then Jacob had finished his charge to his sons. He drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and joined his ancestors in death. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph said to the physicians who served him to embalm his father's body. So Jacob was embalmed. The embalming process took the usual 40 days, and the Egyptians mourned his death for 70 days. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph approached Pharaoh's advisors and said, "Please do me this favor and speak to Pharaoh on my behalf. Tell him that my father made me swear an oath. He said to me, 'Listen, I am about to die. Take my body back to the land of Canaan and bury me in the tomb I prepared for myself. So please allow me to go and bury my father. After his burial, I will return without delay.' Pharaoh agreed to Joseph's request. 'Go and bury your father, as he made you promise,' he said. So Joseph went up to bury his father. He was accompanied by all of Pharaoh's officials, all the senior members of Pharaoh's household, and all the senior officers of Egypt. Joseph also took his entire household and his brothers and their household, but they left their little ones and flocks and herds in the land of Goshen. A great number of chariots and charioteers accompanied Joseph. When they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad near the Jordan River, they held a very great and solemn memorial service with a 7-day period of mourning for Joseph's father. The local residents, the Canaanites, watched them mourning at the threshing floor of Atad. Then they named that place, which is near the Jordan, Abel Mizraim, for they said, "This is a place of deep mourning for these Egyptians." So Jacob's sons did as he had commanded them. They carried his body to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre. This is the cave that Abraham had bought as a permanent burial site from Ephron the Hittite. After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that his father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him, they said. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrongs they did to you, for their sin is treating you so cruelly. For we, the servant of the God of your father, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and drew themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves, they said. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to do harm, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this land, or he brought me to this position so I can save the lives of many people. So don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. So Joseph and his brothers and their families continued to live in Egypt. Joseph lived to the age of 110. He lived to see 3 generations of descendants of his son Ephraim, and he lived to see the birth of the children of Manasseh's son Machir, whom he claimed as his own. Soon I will die, Joseph told his brothers, but God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. He will bring you back to the land he solemnly promised to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear on oath, and he said, when God comes to help you and lead you back, you must take my bones with you. So Joseph died at the age of 110. The Egyptians embalmed him and his body placed in a coffin in Egypt. And that's the end of the book of Genesis, guys. That was a lot, actually. A lot of, at least more like, it's just like 2 really important person passed away and stuff. But yeah, I want to dive more deep into the different blessings that Jacob sent to each of his sons a little bit more today. But let's first start with so as we were beginning to read, we were told how Jacob lived for another 17 years after he arrived in Egypt. So when he arrived at Egypt, he was 130. After 70 years, it's 147. Then basically, Jacob asked Joseph to bury Jacob's body, into the place where Abraham and Isaac were buried and stuff. Since he does not want to be buried in the land of Egypt, he wants to be buried with his ancestors. And so this is where it gets really interesting between Manasseh and Ephraim. Jacob really broke down the rules of the whole firstborn blessing thing, right? Because I think in a sense he felt guilty still for stealing Esau's the birthright blessings and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, it could be a possibility that's lingering in his mind as he was trying to see who he wants to bless and stuff. But yeah, he really broke down the barrier because he decided to give the better of the two blessings to the younger son Ephraim than to Manasseh. Um, and this is kind of the first time that we hear Joseph being upset with Jacob. As it was mentioned in, let me see. As it was mentioned in verse 17 of chapter 48, where it says, "But Joseph was upset when he saw that his father placed his right hand on Ephraim's head." And so with that, Joseph also seems to be showing favoritism. It seems like favoritism seems to be running in the family a lot, right? Because now, I don't know, maybe it's just like Joseph is just wanting to stick to the whole thing with the birthright blessings to the firstborn. Maybe that's why he's upset. Or maybe he's upset because he likes Manasseh more than Ephraim. It's never been clear. But it's just always interesting, and I never really observed how Jacob intentionally gave the better blessing to the younger son than to the older son. Like the older son still got a really good blessing, but he just felt like with what he went through in his lifetime, he doesn't want to give the blessing to the one who is older and stuff, just because they're older. And maybe for whatever reason he chose to do that. It's just always fascinating how he decided to give the better of the blessing to the second oldest instead of the firstborn. But yeah, Jacob basically blessed Ephraim and Manasseh as another way to show favoritism towards Joseph, because obviously we can see that Jacob never blessed anybody else's, any of his other sons' kids, except for Joseph's and stuff. And so yeah, I was just trying to see if he blessed Joseph with his descendants multiplying greatly on earth, and that they may remember Abraham and Isaac and Jacob's name along the way and stuff. But yeah, now let's just move forward to the actual blessings of the 12 blessings that Jacob gave to all of his 12 sons. And so starting with Reuben, it's not a very good blessing, if I'm being honest. I mean, it says like Reuben's being blessed by being the first of the ranks and first in power. But it also talks about how he will also lose that because of what he did to Jacob's wife. I don't know which wife it was, but slept with one of his wives and stuff. Because it says in verse 3 and 4, where it says, "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. You are first in rank and first in power, but you are as unruly as a flood, and you will be the first no longer." Okay, so I think it seems that even you are born first with the first power, you won't have that power. It's gonna, because of what he did. I think, yeah, that doesn't sound like a blessing. It sounds more like a curse to me. I don't understand why Jacob cursed Reuben after what he did to after what Reuben did a long time ago. I thought people learned to forgive, but I guess Jacob didn't learn to forgive. And so Simeon and Levi, again, cursed them for something they did a while back, I think. Yeah, a while back, with a curse of their descendants always being angry. They will have that give birth to some of the most evil people because they will cripple oxen just for fun, and also murdering people, and how like their anger is going to be the curse, and how that anger came. Jacob is basically saying that the descendants of Simeon and Levites are letting anger control them into doing horrific and cruel things, and how like they can never stay together, so they have to be dispersed and stuff. That's what I think that's what it means with Simeon and Levi's blessing. Please let me know if you have like another interpretation of what the blessings are that Jacob gave to his 12 sons. And now Judah, the actual first blessing, where he talks about how Judah will be the strongest tribe, and how he described Judah as a lion who crouches and lies down, who dares to rouse him. Basically means like no other clans are greater than Judah in things, and that he's like basically the first in power, first in rank. And this is interesting in verse 10 of chapter 49, where it says, "The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants, until the coming of the one to whom it belongs, the one whom all nations will honor." It's like that blessing is like a foreshadow of all the kings yet to come through Judah that will rule over Israel, and how through Judah is where Jesus came. And so it's really fascinating how like there's like a long Jacob giving a blessing to Judah that will eventually come true, but it takes a long time for it to actually happen. And so as we move forward, really blessed him with grapevine and like wealth and be able to produce a lot. And then Zebulun seems to be the dude that just like kind of chills in the shore. Really, it's like one of those seashores, like people who really hangs out around the waters and stuff, as it was said in verse 13. And will be a harbor for shores. His borders will extend to Sidon. And so it's interesting how like each sons were given like a special trait, I guess. And I think Zebulun's trait is pretty cool. Just like imagine just like being in the beach and just kind of hanging out by the waters. That sounds pretty relaxing. And now we move to Issachar. Something about donkeys, which if I'm being honest, I don't fully understand, but like how his descendants will work really hard. Whenever I think of donkeys, not very intelligent, they don't have a high IQ. So maybe Jacob is indicating that Issachar's descendants aren't going to be very intelligent, but they are going to be a very hardworking group of people, because he said in verse 15, he will bend his shoulders to the load and submit himself to hard labor. So I guess that's not a bad characteristics to have, that you're known for your commitment to really work hard in things. And Dan will govern, be like the judge, I guess, be the judge of Israel, people of Israel. Because he said, verse 16, he said, Dan will govern his people like any other tribes in Israel. And how like, basically, I think he's trying to say like, Dan's tribe are the ones who's gonna like go around the country, sending judgments down upon each tribe and stuff. And Gad God is like a war type of characteristics in a sense where like it's predicted that his descendants will get attacked, but at the same time, his descendants will also attack others and stuff, other nations. And Asher is all about food, how his descendants will produce the best food that was fit for kings. Indeed. And Naphtali is just like this free will, spirited group of people who doesn't really worry a whole lot, because in verse 21 it says, Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. It's like, well, like more like nature, like they're really good with nature, I think. Then Joseph's, there's a whole bunch of donkey references that I don't fully understand, but yeah, how like basically Jacob's blessing to Joseph is that his descendants will get attacked, right? But they will be saved by God, and how God will watch over Joseph's descendants and things. And then last of all, Benjamin, a ravenous wolf. That is not a good sign. I don't understand why, but it's just because like I think in the book of Judges, I don't know if it's like the whole part of with Benjamin's ancestors did some of the most horrific thing in the world, and how like the whole tribe is basically being punished. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like a foreshadow for that specific event or something else, but yeah, his blessing doesn't seem to be too great. I mean, it talks about how like he will defeat his enemies, but like at the same time and also dividing his plunder in the evening, which, if I'm being honest, I don't understand. So but yeah, Jacob making sure that his sons made a promise with him that they would take him back to where his ancestors were buried and things. And so he took his final breath at the age of 147, and how Joseph mourned for him, kissed him, and how the whole land of Egypt mourned for Jacob, which was interesting because Jacob didn't really do a whole lot for the country, but it's just the fact that Jacob is the father of basically Egyptian savior Joseph, and so they wanted to show the deepest respect to Joseph. They want to show the deepest respect for Joseph by mourning for 70 days for Jacob's death and things, and how like Pharaoh agreed to Joseph's request about taking Jacob's body back so that he can bury his father there in where the cave is, or the burial place where Abraham bought the land from Ephraim the Hittite. And so as we move forward, as we keep moving, and how like it's interesting in a way how this whole time Joseph's brothers thought that Jacob was pretending to be nice, and how like really he's deep down they thought he was gonna come back and take revenge on him and stuff. But the fact is like no, Joseph stays consistent when he is a man of his words. So like when he says he has forgiven his brothers, he has truly forgiven his brothers. And that's the same thing with the God. Is like when God tells us that he has truly forgiven us, that we have to understand that we are actually forgiven, and that we have to let go of our self-guilt, right? It's like the whole phrase of like, if God is being kind to us, why can't we be kind to ourselves, right? That God is really kind to us by forgiving us in our deepest shame. I've dealt with a lot of shame, and I wish it's easy, but it's just always like a hesitation of like, is God as merciful as what He says He is, right? It's like we always live with this guilt, with this conscious mindset, or like question of whether or not God is actually as good as what He says He is, who He says He is. And so it's always a hard thing, but I know like at the same time we have to let go. We have to keep living in things. Don't let our shame break us down into something that, or not break us down, but it keeps us living in the past instead of moving forward. Because God wants us to move forward. He wants us to learn from mistakes, right? But all at the same time, He wants us to move forward with life, so that He can use our lives to do miracles and things. And so yeah, with that, this is a verse that I really like, verse 20 of chapter 50, where it says, "You intended to do harm me, but God intended it all for good." It's just He brought me to this position so I can save the lives of many people. It's like I may not always understand all this the darkest, most evil situations that you guys could be in stuff, but I'm just really praying that like, no matter how hard, no matter how far the light seems to be in the tunnel, that you may know that there is a light in the tunnel, in the light, and that it is a journey, not a race, right? It's like, I hope that you understand that trauma and all that stuff, it is real. It is so real in the world, and it does not take a race to overcome this trauma. It takes the journey. It takes a lot of your energy to be able to recover from such a tragic event. But just know that God will look after you, will take care of you, that He will bring the good out of those most horrific things in the world and stuff. And know that He will never abandon us, no matter how much we feel like He is. That He never truly abandons us, and He is a God of His word and stuff. And so yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else to add besides that Joseph, it sounded like Joseph may have passed away before his other brothers, because in verse 24 of chapter 50, where it says, "Soon I will die," Joseph told his brothers, "but God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt." And so it sounded like his brothers are alive, but at the same time, in verse 25, where it says, "Then Joseph made the sons of Israel." Sons, it doesn't, I mean, it could well be just be like the original 12, but it could also be like the descendants of Jacob and things. But yeah, basically what he's asking them to do is do the same thing. Take his body back, take his bones back to Israel, to the promised land, to be buried. He doesn't want to be buried in Egypt and things. But yeah, other than that, I got nothing else. I hope that, again, I've always hoped that every video I upload, that you may be able to see some sort of insights within each and stuff, like the mini details and stuff. Hope that you were able to notice and things, because I have definitely noticed I definitely realized how much I miss in the book of Genesis, and how it motivates me to read each book more carefully, more like slower, so that I can get as much details as I can out of it. But also realizing that nobody can truly understand the Bible. Truly fully understands the Bible, that we all are in the process of learning the Bible and things. And so yeah, other than that, I was trying to see how I wanted to end, I guess, today. So I'll be reading from Psalm 78, where it says Psalms 48, chapter verse 4, where it says, "We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generations the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, His power, and the wonders He has done." And I just chose that verse because it really magnifies the glory of God and how He uses the life of Joseph to save millions of people, make wondrous things happen, not just to Joseph, but to the hearts of his brothers as well, and to the hearts of his the heart of his father and things. And so may you go and walk with God today.